So let's take a look at the Getting Ready to Write guide. Your Getting Ready to Write guide is meant to build in some foundational level lessons. You're going to see that the very first tab in your guide says genre. Well, the first thing we want to do is teach students what a narrative is, what an expository is. We want to give them some background information as to the structure of those kinds of texts and help them to understand that book covers offer a lot of information if we study them. So the lessons are designed to build in some information about genre. Then your next tab is all about opinion, expository, and research lessons. And that will be the genre that you will use throughout your year. Then you have narrative lessons, and there's a whole section on vocabulary building. So let's talk a little bit about our youngest authors. Well, there are some challenges that you have to meet in that K-1 classroom. First of all, you've got these very developmental levels. You know what I'm talking about. You've got kids who walk in the door and they're already reading. And then you've got those in the very same classroom who don't even know what a letter or a number is. And they have very little background knowledge and very limited language. And then you've got everything in between. That's what I'm talking about when we really start to say, how do I meet the needs of all of those varied levels? Well, the Getting Ready to Write guide is organized so that you can actually meet the needs of all of your learners. We're always going to start by developing oral language with students, building in powerful language and vocabulary. We're going to model the thought process of an author out loud as the teacher, giving students the ability to uncover what an author goes through you as the teacher author. And ultimately, we're going to encourage students to then write independently. All of this is done through a very specific methodology. What are some of the other challenges that you might find in the classroom? Well, here's what I found in my classroom and in my building. There was very little consistency in terms of terminology and vocabulary in the K-1 classrooms. So in the kindergarten classrooms, the teachers were talking about writing in one way. And then as those students moved into first grade, there was a whole new set of language and vocabulary involved in writing. And so students did not internalize not only the structures, but the language that we use. And so we want to build in some of that consistency. I also found that teachers feel a little insecure about their own writing. That's certainly a challenge that I had. In my own experience, I never felt that I was a writer, and so I struggled in front of my classroom when I began to do some modeling with them. And what happened was I had to learn how to really use what we call our productive questions and begin to feel comfortable and confident as a writer myself. The other challenge that I think is really something that we have to kind of like lay on the table here is that students' work has very little focus. Typically, we don't see a lot of elaboration. There's very little voice. Oftentimes, you see what I call sort of like the journal entry, what I did yesterday. And so when we look at what students are able to do intrinsically, we really need to help them to understand what an author goes through. What is the thought process? How do we look at books with author's eyes? All of this is inherent in your Getting Ready to Write guide. We are going to meet the needs of all of our students through the use of not only our powerful language and vocabulary lessons, but as you model and students begin to practice.